are very few people who become so famous, they're just known by their first name.
There's a tinsy-wincy station that have the sort of success that she has. She's a global icon.
She's a very brightly coloured person, and I think that's why we're drawn to that.
There isn't anybody like Adele. Her voice is so natural, it's not forced.
Her down-to-earth personality has captured the hearts of millions.
I'm exhausted. I've got eczema from sterilising bottles so much.
She's almost the heroine in a Dickensian story. You know, she's sort of one of the goodies.
By the age of just 22, she'd released the best-selling album of the 21st century.
How is it possible that an album kept getting bigger and bigger?
She's become a cultural icon and challenged our perceptions of what a pop star should be.
Gordon Brown said she was a light at the end of the tunnel.
Adele showed such maturity at such a young age. You know, she's writing about the government, worlds colliding.
Where does that purity of sound come from?
In this programme, we're looking at the sometimes surprising, often emotional, 30 greatest moments in Adele's life as we discover where she came from, where she's got to, and how she got there.
Sometimes to just step back and think, hold on, I taught this girl. 19, 21, 25 and 30 were worked with in these rooms.
First thing live. I did.
In a time when even some of the biggest artists have struggled to get mainstream attention, Adele has somehow repeatedly managed to create music that resonates with a worldwide audience. And it all started just 15 years ago. June 2007. Britain and the world were teetering on the edge of a recession. When 19-year-old Adele, unpolished, largely unknown and yet to release an album, arrived at BBC Television Centre in London. She'd been invited to appear on legendary music programme Later with Jules Holland.
Well, God, Jules Holland isn't just a man, he's an institution, and it's created so many careers, that show.
For any artist, this was a serious mark of musical clout. This is the show that the entire record industry watches.
Jules is great for kind of bringing in new, young, undiscovered talent. He really wants to kind of showcase young people.
She will have known the significance of going on Jules Holland and standing there and announcing herself to the world.
I had been trying to get her on the show before then, but it hadn't quite worked out. And some artists don't want to get on the show too soon. You know, when you get new artists on our show, they're not people that are just, oh, we spotted someone, that was good. There are people that you know, have already got some traction, some momentum. And she really had a lot of excitement around her. Everyone you spoke to, every review you read said this is like, she's got an amazing voice and is authentic and is telling these stories.
Overwhelming experience for her.
It was really, really frightening. I think someone pulled out and it was, Bjork was on it and Paul McCartney was on it, and it was my first time ever even really being in a TV studio and actually being on TV.
Not only was it her debut, but also you've got the other artists in the room. You've got the world looking at it. It's your first TV performance. You mess this up, it could be the end of everything. You know, all these anxieties are going on. Or instead, she's thinking, I'm just going to do my music, or whether you like it or not. Making her TV debut, we welcome from Brixton, Adele.
As this clip shows, Adele's performance that night is stripped back, just her and her guitar. And as she starts to sing Daydreamer, she stuns the audience with her powerful and confident voice.
In the first couple of moments, Adele does two things technically, which I think really kind of distinguish who she is and what her sound is. One is called a glottal stop. And what glottal stop is when the vocal cords come together and you stop the air coming out. It sounds like this. in those first opening lines, we really hear it when she says, "He is a real," you got it 3 times there, "is a real." You have that kind of all the way through, which is so recognisable for Adele. And the second is that she's singing in her own accent, her own London accent, which again, we haven't really heard so much in kind of soft, sensual ballads.
He could change the world with his hands behind his back. Oh.
I do remember thinking she was really something really special. If you look at some artists, if their songs are the sort of...
Everything was just snowballing, and I remember speaking to her about the record and just kind of how mad everything was. She was just so honest, you know, you just sit down and have a chat with her, and everything as she is still now, she's never changed, and she's always been her truest self.
Adele recorded much of 19 here at Metropolis Studios in Chiswick, London. Lewis Slade is the studio's manager.
Why don't we go in and we can take a look around?
She was in good company. Queen, George Michael, the Rolling Stones, Joan Armatrading, Paul McCartney and Prince have all recorded albums here.
This is Studio A, which is our main studio, and this is the control room where all the magic happens.
Adele used different studios for different sounds, depending on the needs of each song.
This is Studio C in Metropolis Studios, and it's a really iconic studio. They're all pretty iconic here, actually, because so much amazing music has been recorded here. Adele actually recorded some of all of her albums right in this studio.
In here is where the engineer would sit down, and then you've always got a line of sight to wherever she might have been recorded.
My name is Polly Van Dam. I'm a mother and a musician.
Through there, we can go to the live room.
Let me show you the live room where she would have recorded her vocals. It would have just been literally her here with these panels either side and the microphone and her headphones on, and away she goes.
So this is the live room in Studio A. The piano would be set up in the middle here, so you can obviously see the engineer recording 19, 21, 25 and 30. Various different parts of all of those albums were worked with in these rooms. But yeah, from whatever I've seen of her as well, behind the scenes, even in the studio or up at the bar, she's very friendly and easy to talk to. She's also worked with Tony Cousins as well, who's almost like the godfather of mastering. So having someone like that to polish off all the tracks that Adele's worked on, I think it's a match made in heaven.
The first time I met Adele was on that occasion for her album. Adele was slightly excited, naturally enough, and sort of perfectly normal, you know, a bit ebullient. She approached the whole thing in a sort of completely natural way. That's what I really liked. It was just the naturalness of her voice and her ability to express herself, actually.
I feel like in Adele's recording, she keeps everything in. So often, you know, producers will cut out the breath marks or the little voice wobbles, and she kind of keeps everything in. And I think in her backing as well, the piano, everything sounds live and real and raw, the way the type of music she's making should reflect.
First track on the album was Adele singing to an acoustic 4-string bass, and I thought, bloody hell, to play it and sing it as effectively as she was doing it, I thought, A, that was courageous, but also I thought it was a very good idea. One of the reasons that she's so successful is that A, she's got a great voice, and that thing of naturalness, because her voice is so natural, it's not forced. She sings from her heart. People pick up on that straight away.
She's not just a good singer, she's a really great singer and a great songwriter, and that's a giddy mix. I mean, she's got lots of, I think, amazing small gifts, and some are enormous sort of talents as well, but it's all the right ones, and that's what makes her completeness.
In popular music, generally, there isn't anybody like Adele, you know, in terms of how she delivers a song.
Adele's album 19 went on to sell 6.5 million copies. But when did the London teenager discover that she could really sing?